My name is Anna, and this is not just my story. It is the story of my sister. Her name was Sarah. She was 2 years younger than me, but if you looked into her eyes, you would think she carried the wisdom of someone far older. Big, brown eyes that never stopped searching for hope, hope in places where no hope existed. When people ask me what I remember most about her, I don't say her face, or her voice, or even her smile. I say her light, because Sarah carried a light inside her, a light that refused to die, no matter how much darkness surrounded her. We grew up in a house that was not a home. From the outside, it looked ordinary. A small brick house, a rusted gate, 2 windows that never opened properly. But inside it was a cage. Not of walls and doors, but of fear. Our father made sure of that. He was not the kind of father who tucked you into bed, or kissed you goodnight, or asked how your day was. He was the kind of father who turned silence into a weapon, whose footsteps in the hallway made your blood run cold. When he spoke, it was to command. When he touched, it was to hurt. When he looked at us, it was never with love. But Sarah, she still searched for love in him. I remember one night I was about 10 and she was 8. We were lying in bed, sharing one thin blanket. She whispered to me, "Anna, do you think Daddy will love us tomorrow?" I didn't know what to say. I wanted to tell her the truth, that love was something our father had never given us, and probably never would. But I couldn't. She was so small, so innocent. So I said, "Maybe, Sarah. Maybe tomorrow." She smiled in the dark and whispered, "Then I'll wait. I'll wait for tomorrow." That was Sarah. Always waiting for tomorrow. Always believing tomorrow would be better. There were times when she tried to make our broken world beautiful. She loved the stars. Whenever our father's anger had passed and the house grew quiet again, Sarah would tug on my hand and whisper, "Come outside, Anna. Just for a minute. Please." We would sneak into the garden barefoot, the grass cool under our feet. She would point at the sky, her little finger tracing constellations she didn't even know the names of. "Do you think the stars can hear us?" she asked me once. I laughed. "Hear us? They're millions of miles away." But she shook her head. "No, Anna. I think they're listening. I think when we tell them our secrets, they keep them safe." And then she closed her eyes, clasped her hands like she was praying, and whispered, "I wish our home was safe. I wish Mom could smile again. I wish Dad would love us. I wish you'll always stay with me, Anna." Even as a child, she wished for things that were too heavy for her small heart. At school, Sarah was different too. She wasn't the loudest or the smartest, but she had this kindness that drew people in. If someone was crying, she sat beside them. If someone was alone, she offered her sandwich. If someone was bullied, she stepped forward, even if it meant being hurt herself. I used to get angry at her. "Sarah," I said once, "you can't save everyone. You can't fight the world." She just smiled and said, "Then I'll save one person at a time." That was who she was. the kind of person who would give everything, even if she got nothing back. But home was different. Home was a place where dreams were stolen, where our father's shadow loomed larger than any light, where our mother sat in silence, her eyes always lowered, her voice trapped in her throat. I used to think maybe she didn't love us enough to protect us. But Sarah never thought that way. She used to whisper, "Mom is scared too. Maybe she needs saving, just like us." And she was right. Our mother was a prisoner too. There was one evening I will never forget. Sarah was 9, I was 11. We had drawn pictures on scraps of paper. Her drawing was of a house with big windows and flowers outside. A happy house. When our father came home, he saw the paper on the table. He picked it up and asked, "What is this nonsense?" Sarah, with her small voice, whispered, "It's my dream house." He tore the paper in half and threw it on the floor. "Dreams are useless. Stop wasting time." Sarah bent down, picked up the torn pieces, and held them like they were something sacred. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just pressed the pieces against her chest. That night, when we were in bed, she whispered, "Even if he tears my paper, he can't tear my dream. Right, Anna?" I hugged her tight and whispered, "Right, Sarah." But inside, I wondered how long she could hold on before even her dreams were broken. Our father thought he was strong. He thought fear made him powerful. But what he never understood was that Sarah had a strength he could never touch. A strength born from kindness, from love, from hope. And maybe that's why he hated her the most. Because even in her smallness, even in her silence, she defied him simply by believing. That was our childhood. A childhood of fear and laughter stolen in secret. Of tears wiped away quickly so no one would see. Of dreams whispered to the stars, even when no one else believed. And for Sarah, every dream was fragile, like a candle flame in the wind. And all it took was one storm, our father's storm, to try and blow it out. I wish I could tell you that the worst of it never happened. I wish I could tell you that our childhood pain was just about fear, about silence, about broken dreams on paper. But that would be a lie, because pain has layers. And our father, he knew how to cut through every single one. The first time his anger truly fell on Sarah, I remember the sound more than the sight. It was a sound that doesn't leave you. A sound that carves itself into your memory and replays at night when the world is quiet. It was a Saturday afternoon. Sarah and I had been in the kitchen trying to make cookies from an old recipe we found in a magazine. We didn't have the right ingredients, so we improvised. Instead of chocolate chips, we used broken pieces of candy. Instead of butter, we used margarine. It was messy, but we were laughing the whole time. For a moment, the kitchen felt alive. It smelled like sugar and warmth, not fear. Then the front door slammed. His footsteps. Heavy, sharp, angry. Sarah froze. She was holding the wooden spoon, her hands sticky with dough. She whispered, "Do you think he'll be mad?" I whispered back, Don't say anything. Just stay quiet. But he walked in, and the first thing he saw was the mess. Flour on the counter. Sugar spilled on the floor. His face twisted, and I felt the air in the room change. "What is this?" he barked. Neither of us answered. I wanted to shield Sarah, to speak before she did, but she stepped forward, her little voice trembling. "We were baking. I just wanted to surprise you." For a second, just a split second, I thought maybe he would soften. Maybe hearing his child say she wanted to surprise him would melt something inside him. But it didn't. It made him colder. "Surprise me?" His voice thundered. "Do you think I care about this garbage?" Then he grabbed the tray of half-formed cookies and threw it across the room. The sound of the metal clattering against the wall made Sarah jump. And then the sound. The slap. Sharp. Pull. Final. Her small body stumbled back, her hand pressed to her cheek. I screamed, "Stop." She didn't mean, but before I could finish, his hand was raised again. Our mother rushed in then, her face pale, her hands trembling. "Please, please stop. They're just children." But he shoved her aside. His voice filled the kitchen like a storm. "Useless. Both of you. Wasting food, wasting time, making a mess in my house." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry out loud. She just stood there, silent, shaking, holding her cheek. And that silence was worse than any scream. That night, when we lay in bed, I turned to her. The moonlight slipped through the window, touching her face. The red mark on her cheek was fading into purple. I whispered, "Sarah, are you okay?" She nodded, but her voice was small. "Anna, why doesn't he love us?" I had no answer. My throat ached with words I couldn't say. So I pulled her close, wrapped my arms around her, and whispered, "I love you. I'll always love you." She pressed her forehead against my chest, and for the first time, I felt her tears soak my shirt. After that day, something changed. It was like our father had crossed a line, and now there was no going back. The shouting became more frequent. The slaps, the pushing, the constant reminders that we were nothing. He didn't see daughters when he looked at us. He saw burdens. He saw mistakes. And Sarah bore the weight of it the most. I used to wonder why. Why her? Why did he direct so much of his anger at her? Maybe it was because she was softer, easier to break. Maybe it was because she still looked him in the eye, even after the pain. She still hoped, still wished, still dreamed, and maybe that defiance, that quiet hope, made him furious. Because people like him, they can't stand hope. Hope is a mirror that shows them what they'll never be. At school, Sarah tried to hide it. She wore long sleeves even in summer, pulled her hair down to cover her face. When teachers asked questions, she answered with a smile that looked convincing enough to fool them. But I saw. I always saw. The way her hands shook when she held a pencil. The way her laugh was shorter, quieter, like she was afraid even joy would get her punished. The way she flinched when someone raised their voice, even if it wasn't angry. She was changing, and I hated him for it. There was another night I can't forget. It was raining. The house smelled of damp wood and cigarettes. Our father had been drinking, his anger bubbling like poison. Sarah had dropped a cup. Just a cup. A small, fragile cup that slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. The sound of it breaking was enough to wake the storm. He grabbed her by the arm, his fingers digging into her skin. Clumsy. Stupid girl, he shouted. She cried, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But apologies meant nothing to him. I ran forward, pulling at his arm. Stop. She said she's sorry. He shoved me to the ground. My head hit the corner of the table, and for a moment, the room spun. Sarah screamed, not for herself, but for me. Anna, are you okay? And that scream must have cut through him, because for the first time he stopped. He let go of her arm, pushed her away, and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him. We sat there, both shaking, the rain pounding outside like a drum. Sarah crawled to me, touched the back of my head gently, and whispered, It should have been me. I wish it was me. I grabbed her shoulders. Don't ever say that again, Sarah. Don't you dare. But she just cried harder, repeating over and over, I'm sorry, as if being alive was something she had to apologize for. That's when I realized something terrifying. It wasn't just that our father was breaking her body. He was breaking her spirit. Piece by piece. And I didn't know how much longer she could hold on. When people look at photographs of Sarah, they often say the same thing. She had such bright eyes. Such a hopeful face. They're right. But what they don't understand is how hard she fought to keep that hope alive. Sarah loved books. We didn't have many in the house, but she cherished the few that we did. An old copy of Little Women, with pages torn and faded. A children's book about stars. A Bible that belonged to our grandmother. She read them all, over and over, until she knew some passages by heart. At night, when the house was quiet, she would whisper stories to me from those books. Her voice was soft, like a lullaby, carrying me away from the bruises, from the shouting, from the endless fear. One day, Anna, she would say, I'll be a teacher. I'll have a little classroom filled with children. I'll tell them stories, and I'll make them believe in good things, even if the world outside is cruel. Her dream was simple. Pure, to teach. To give love where she had none. And every time she spoke of it, her face would glow, as if for a moment she wasn't trapped here, as if she could already see that classroom, that future. But reality was never far behind. Our father hated her dreams. He said books were useless, that girls were meant to work, to serve, to obey. Whenever he saw her reading, he would snatch the book from her hands and sometimes tear the pages. Stop filling your head with nonsense, he would yell. You'll never be anything. You hear me? Nothing. But Sarah, she didn't stop. She hid her books under the floorboards, beneath the mattress, even inside pillowcases. I remember one night, after he had gone to bed, she pulled out Little Women and whispered, "If he takes this one, Anna, I don't know what I'll do." Her fingers traced the torn edges of the cover like it was something sacred. And maybe, for her it was, because that book wasn't just paper. It was hope. School was supposed to be her escape. But even there, the shadows followed. I remember the day her teacher asked her to stand up and read aloud. Her voice trembled at first, but then it grew steady, confident. The words rolled off her tongue like they belonged to her. The whole class watched, silent, listening. When she finished, the teacher smiled and said, "Sarah, you have a gift. You should never stop reading. One day, you'll do something great." Sarah's face lit up like the sun. But that joy didn't last, because our father didn't like her staying late for schoolwork, didn't like her talking about teachers or dreams. One evening, when she told him about what the teacher had said, he laughed, a bitter, cruel laugh. "Great? You," he scoffed. "You're nothing but a useless girl. You think the world cares what you read? No man will ever want you if you spend your time with your nose in books." His words hit harder than his fists sometimes, because they didn't leave bruises you could see, they left wounds inside. I watched her smile fade. She didn't argue. She just lowered her head, pressing her lips together like she was holding back all the words she wanted to say. That night, I heard her crying into her pillow, whispering to herself, "I'll be something. I have to be something." There was another night, one I'll never forget. We were sitting by the window, looking at the stars as we often did. Sarah leaned her head against the glass and whispered, "Anna, do you think we'll ever get out of here?" I didn't know what to say. I wanted to tell her yes, that we'd run away, find a place where no one could hurt us. But the truth was, I didn't believe it. I was older and maybe more broken. I had stopped dreaming a long time ago. So instead I said, "Maybe. One day." She smiled faintly. "I have to believe it, because if I stop believing, I'll die here. Not just my body, but my heart." She looked at me then, her eyes shining with tears. "Promise me, Anna. Promise me that if I can't get out, you will. Promise me you'll live the life I can't." I shook my head fiercely. "Don't talk like that. We'll both make it out." But she just kept looking at me, her eyes so sad, so certain. "Promise me." And so, I did, even though it broke me to say it. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Our father's cruelty became routine. His shouting, his drinking, his fists. But Sarah never stopped dreaming. Even when her body was weak, even when her spirit was tired, she clung to those dreams like a drowning girl clings to a piece of wood in the ocean. One night, she gave me her diary, a small, worn notebook with flowers drawn on the cover. "If anything happens to me, Anna," she whispered, "keep this safe. Don't let him find it." I opened it later, when she was asleep. Page after page, She had written her heart, her fears, her prayers, her dreams. One page broke me the most. It said, "Dear stars, if you can hear me, please protect Anna. Please make her happy, even if I can't be. I don't mind suffering as long as she is free one day." I closed the book, pressing it to my chest, and cried silently in the dark. Because Sarah wasn't just dreaming for herself. She was dreaming for me. Our father never knew about the diary, but he knew her spirit hadn't been broken yet, and that seemed to enrage him more. Because men like him, they want total control. They want silence, obedience, emptiness. And Sarah, even in her pain, still had a spark. And sparks can start fires. Looking back now, I realized that part 3 of our lives, the part filled with her dreams, was also the calm before the storm. Because soon her spark would grow weaker. Her dreams would be crushed, one by one. And I would watch, helpless, as the sister who once wished on stars began to lose her light. There comes a time in every broken home when silence becomes heavier than screams. And in our house, that silence was everywhere. It was in the way our mother walked, head down, lips pressed tightly, never meeting our eyes. It was in the way the walls seemed to listen, carrying secrets in their cracks. It was in the way Sarah's laughter, once so bright, so alive, grew quieter until it was almost gone. Sarah was changing. She still carried her dreams, but they were no longer spoken aloud with the same light in her eyes. She held them inside now, like fragile glass she was afraid to drop. I noticed it one evening when we were sitting together on the floor, playing with the broken pieces of an old puzzle we had found in the attic. When we were younger, Sarah would have turned it into a game. She would have laughed, making up silly stories about why the pieces didn't fit. But this time, she just stared at them. Her fingers traced the jagged edges slowly, her brows furrowed, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Anna," she whispered finally, "sometimes I think maybe Dad is right. Maybe I'll never be anything." Her words struck me like a blade. I grabbed her hands, shaking my head. "Don't say that. You're everything, Sarah. You're the best part of this house. Without you, I don't even know how I'd still be alive." She looked at me then, her eyes glistening with tears. "But what if I'm too weak? What if I can't keep fighting him?" I wanted to promise her that she was strong, that she was brave, that she was more than our father's cruelty. But deep down, I feared she was right, because every day I could see the fight inside her fading. Our father's violence grew worse. It was no longer just words, no longer just shouts. It was doors slammed, plates broken, fists raised. And Sarah, my sweet, gentle sister, became his favorite target. Sometimes it was for reasons so small they didn't even exist. Her dress wasn't ironed properly. She didn't answer fast enough. She dared to look at him with her quiet, defiant eyes. The punishments were cruel, and every time she would retreat deeper into herself, as if building invisible walls around her heart. One night I heard it, the sound that would haunt me forever. Sarah's muffled sobs coming from the other room. And over them, my father's voice, low, menacing, filled with venom. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught fragments. Useless? You'll learn. Don't you dare look at me like that. I pressed my hands against my ears, tears streaming down my face, hating myself for being too scared to move, too weak to stop him. When it was finally quiet again, I crept into her room. She was lying on the floor, curled into herself, her face swollen, her body trembling. When she saw me, she tried to smile, tried to pretend she was fine. But when I touched her, she broke. She clung to me desperately, sobbing into my chest, whispering over and over, I can't do this anymore, Anna. I held her, rocking her gently, whispering lies I wanted so badly to believe. You can. You're strong. We'll get out of here. I promise. But in my heart, I was terrified, because I could see it, the light in her eyes dimming, the fire in her spirit flickering. And I didn't know how much longer she could hold on. Our mother, she saw it too. One morning, I caught her staring at Sarah from across the room. There was pain in her eyes, guilt etched into her face. But she didn't say anything. She never did. Sometimes I wanted to scream at her, to shake her. Why don't you stop him? Why don't you protect her? Protect us. But I already knew the answer. She was broken too. She had lived under his shadow for too long. Her silence wasn't indifference. It was survival. And maybe she thought silence was the only way to keep us alive. Sarah stopped going to school as often. Our father didn't see the point in wasting time. He said she needed to learn her place. So she stayed home, washing dishes, cleaning floors, doing laundry until her hands were raw. And with every day that passed, a piece of her slipped away. The girl who once whispered wishes to the stars now barely looked at the sky. The girl who once dreamed of teaching now barely picked up her books. And when she did, her hands shook, as if even hope itself had become too heavy for her to hold. One night, I asked her why she wasn't writing in her diary anymore. She shrugged, staring at the floor. What's the point, Anna? Words don't change anything. Dreams don't change anything. He always wins. Her voice cracked at the end, and tears spilled down her cheeks. I tried to protest, to remind her of the promises she had made, the stars we had wished upon, the future she still could have. But she just shook her head slowly, her tears falling silently, her body trembling.
I'm tired, Anna.
So tired. Those words, they terrified me more than anything, because I realized then that my sister wasn't just losing hope. She was slipping away. And yet, even in her despair, there were moments of the old Sarah. A small smile when I made her laugh. A spark in her eyes when she heard a song she loved. A soft hum as she brushed my hair in the dark. But those moments were fleeting. like raindrops in the desert, and each time they disappeared faster, leaving only emptiness behind. Looking back now, I think part 4 of our lives was when Sarah's light truly began to fade. She was still here, breathing, moving, existing. But inside, she was breaking. And though I tried to hold her together with my love, my words, my arms around her in the night, I knew I couldn't stop the cracks from spreading, because our Father was relentless, and hope can only survive so much pain. There are nights you never forget, nights that stay with you, carved into your memory like scars on your skin. For me, that night came when Sarah's world finally shattered. It began like any other evening in our house, quiet, heavy, suffocating. The air was thick, as if even the walls were holding their breath, waiting for the storm to come. I remember Sarah sitting by the window, her knees pulled to her chest, her chin resting on her arms. She was staring at the sky. Though it was cloudy, no stars to be seen. Her eyes looked so far away, as if she was searching for something beyond the darkness. I sat beside her, trying to bring her back. "What are you looking at?" I asked softly. She didn't turn to me. Her voice was quiet, almost distant. I used to believe the stars were listening, but tonight, I think they've stopped. Her words broke something inside me. I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently.
No, Sarah.
They're still there. Even when you can't see them, they're there. Just like me. I'm here. I'll always be here. She gave me a small smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Then we heard it, the front door slamming, the sound we feared more than anything. Our Father was home, and I knew, even before I saw him, that something was wrong. The air shifted, colder, heavier. I could hear his footsteps, uneven, angry, dangerous. When he entered the room, his face was twisted with rage. His breath smelled of alcohol. His eyes were bloodshot, wild. Sarah stiffened beside me, clutching my hand so tightly it hurt. "You too," he growled, his voice thick and slurred. Sitting here, whispering like little snakes. "Do you think I don't see what you're doing?" We froze, too afraid to speak. He stepped closer, towering over us, his shadow swallowing the room. "Useless girls," he spat. "Nothing but burdens. I feed you, I give you a roof, and what do I get? Silence. Stares. Disrespect." His hand shot out, grabbing Sarah by the arm, yanking her to her feet. She gasped, wincing in pain, but didn't cry out. "Look at me," he roared, shaking her violently. "You think you're better than me? You think you can defy me?" I jumped up, desperate. "Please, stop. Don't hurt her." His eyes snapped to me, full of fire. "Shut your mouth, Anna, or you'll be next." I froze, trembling, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. Sarah looked at me then, her eyes wide, terrified, but still trying to be brave. And in that moment, I saw something inside her break. She wasn't fighting anymore. She wasn't wishing on stars. She wasn't dreaming of escape. She just stood there, limp in his grip, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. My father shoved her hard, and she stumbled to the ground. "Get up," he barked. "Get up and show me some respect." She didn't move fast enough. His boot connected with her side, and she cried out, curling into herself. I screamed, rushing forward, but he shoved me back so hard I hit the wall, my vision blurring. The house was chaos, his shouts, her sobs, my cries echoing together. And then suddenly, silence. He stood over her, breathing heavily, his fists clenched. She lay on the floor, shaking, her breath shallow. For a moment, I thought he would stop, that maybe he had finally realized he'd gone too far. But then his face hardened again. And I knew he wasn't done. That night stretched on like an eternity. Every minute was another blow, another scream, another prayer whispered into the void. I tried to shield her, to pull her away, to take the hits myself. But I was too small, too weak, and she was too broken. At one point, she looked at me through swollen eyes, her lips trembling as she whispered, "It's okay. Anna, it's okay." But it wasn't okay. It would never be okay. When it finally ended, Sarah was barely conscious. Our father stormed out of the room, muttering curses, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I fell to the floor beside her, gathering her fragile body into my arms. She was so light, so fragile, like she might shatter if I held her too tightly. "Sarah, please stay with me," I begged, tears streaming down my face. "You can't leave me. Not you." Her eyes fluttered open, and for the briefest moment, I saw a flicker of the old Sarah, the girl who believed in stars, who whispered dreams in the night. She lifted a trembling hand, brushing my cheek weakly. "I love you, Anna," she whispered, and then her hand fell. I shook her, desperate, panicked. "No, Sarah, stay with me. Please." Her chest still rose and fell, faintly, but her breaths were shallow, uneven. I didn't know what to do. I was just a girl, powerless, terrified. So I just held her, rocking back and forth, sobbing into her hair, whispering prayers into the darkness. And as I held her that night, I realized something. This house wasn't just killing her. It was killing me too. And if something didn't change soon, I was going to lose her forever. After that night, nothing was the same. Sarah was alive, but only just. Her body carried the bruises, the marks of his rage, but worse than that was the silence in her eyes. The spark that once danced there, that little flame of hope she always carried, was dimming. I tried to tell myself it was only temporary, that she would heal, that she would smile again, that she would whisper dreams into the night like before. But deep down, I knew I was losing her. The mornings were the hardest. She would wake slowly, her movements careful, as if every limb ached. Her breaths were shallow, and sometimes I caught her holding her ribs, wincing at the pain. I would fuss over her, trying to make her comfortable.
Here, Sarah.
Let me fix your pillow. Do you want some water? Can I get you something to eat? She would give me a soft smile, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm fine, Anna. Don't worry so much.
But I worried anyway.
Because I could see the truth. She wasn't fine. School became impossible for her. The teachers started asking questions about the bruises, the cuts. Sarah would lower her head, whispering excuses. I fell. I tripped. I'm just clumsy. And they believed her. Or maybe they didn't want to see. Every lie she told cut deeper into me, because I knew she wasn't protecting herself. She was protecting him. Even after everything, she didn't want to expose our father. He'll get angry if they know, she whispered once when I begged her to tell the truth. And if he gets angry, it'll be worse for you, Anna. That was Sarah, always protecting me, even when she was the one dying inside. At night, she still tried to look at the sky. One evening, I found her standing at the window, her hands pressed against the cold glass. The stars are hiding again, she murmured. I stepped beside her, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. They're still there, Sarah. You just can't see them tonight. She leaned her head against my shoulder, her voice trembling. What if they've stopped listening? What if they've given up on me? Tears stung my eyes, but I forced a smile. Then I'll listen for them. I'll keep your secrets. I'll make sure your dreams don't disappear. She looked up at me, her eyes wet, and whispered, Promise? I promise, I said, holding her tightly.
And I meant it, even if it broke me.
Our mother watched all of this, silent as ever. I used to hate her silence. I used to think she was weak, that she didn't care enough to fight for us. But one night, as Sarah slept beside me, I caught our mother standing in the doorway, tears streaming down her face.
She didn't speak.
She didn't come closer. She just stood there, shaking, her hand covering her mouth to keep from sobbing aloud. And for the first time, I realized she was broken too. Her silence wasn't indifference. It was fear. Fear that had chained her for years. Fear that had stolen her voice. But that didn't change the fact that Sarah was slipping away and no one was saving her. No one but me. The days blurred together. Sarah grew weaker. She slept more, spoke less. Her laughter, the one thing that had always filled our darkest days, disappeared completely. Sometimes I would try to make her laugh, telling silly stories, making funny faces, even dancing awkwardly around the room. She would smile faintly, but the sound of her laughter never came back. And every day, I felt her slipping further and further away from me. There was one moment that still haunts me. I found her sitting in the garden, hunched over, a wilted flower in her hands. It's dying, she whispered, stroking the fragile petals. We can plant new ones, I said quickly, trying to keep her hopeful. She shook her head slowly. Even flowers get tired of fighting. Even they give up.
Her words chilled me.
I knelt beside her, grabbing her hands. But you're not a flower, Sarah. You're stronger than that. You can't give up. Please don't give up. She looked at me with tears shining in her eyes. I'm trying, Anna.
I really am.
But I'm so tired.
My heart shattered.
Because I knew she meant more than just tired in her body. She was tired in her soul. I prayed every night. Even though I wasn't sure who I was praying to, I prayed anyway. I prayed for her strength, for her healing, for her life. But each morning, when I saw her pale face, her fragile body, her fading eyes, my prayers felt unanswered. And the worst part, our Father didn't stop. Even when she was weak, even when she could barely stand, his anger still found her. His voice still tore into her. His hands still left marks. And she never fought back, because she had nothing left to fight with. One night, she woke me with her whisper. Anna, are you awake? I turned to her quickly, worried. Yes, I'm here. What is it? She stared at me in the dark, her eyes glistening. If something happens to me, promise me you'll live. Promise me you won't let him break you too. I shook my head furiously, clutching her hand. Don't talk like that. Nothing's going to happen to you. I won't let it. We'll escape, Sarah. One day, we'll run away together. We'll build that dream house you drew, with flowers, with big windows, with sunlight in every room. You'll see. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. That sounds beautiful. Her eyes fluttered closed again, but her hand squeezed mine weakly. I hope you get there, Anna. Even if I don't. I held her through the night, my tears soaking the pillow. I didn't sleep at all, because for the first time, I was truly afraid that I was already losing her. That was Sarah in her last days. A girl who once believed in stars, reduced to whispers in the dark. A heart that once carried light, fading into shadows. A sister who once promised forever, slipping through my fingers no matter how tightly I held on. And me, a powerless witness, watching the most beautiful soul I had ever known slowly disappear. I don't think I will ever forget that night. It was the night the house fell completely silent, but inside that silence, the storm raged. Sarah was weaker than ever. She hadn't eaten much for days, barely sipped water, and her voice was so faint it was like the wind could carry it away. Every time she breathed, it sounded heavy, painful. Her chest rose and felt like it was struggling with each motion. I sat beside her bed, holding her hand. I didn't want to let go, not even for a second. I'm here, Sarah, I whispered. I'll stay with you all night. She smiled faintly, her lips dry, her eyes half closed. Thank you, Anna. Her words were soft, almost like she was already somewhere far away. The air in the house was heavy. Our mother paced quietly outside the room, wringing her hands, whispering prayers under her breath. She didn't come inside. She couldn't. And him, our father, he was downstairs, drinking, muttering to himself, the sound of glass clinking filling the silence. Every thud of his footsteps on the floor below made me flinch, terrified he might come up and start again. But strangely that night he didn't. Maybe even monsters know when they've taken too much. Or maybe he simply didn't care anymore. As the hours passed, Sarah's breaths grew shallower. I tried to distract her, to keep her with me. I told her stories about when we were little, about the stars she loved so much, about the dreams she once whispered. Remember the garden, Sarah? Remember how you used to ask if the stars were listening? She opened her eyes slightly, a weak smile crossing her face. They were listening, Anna. They always were. Tears blurred my vision. I squeezed her hand tighter. Then tell them one more wish. Just one more. Wish to stay. Wish to keep living. Please, Sarah. Her gaze softened, filled with a sadness deeper than I could bear. I already made my last wish, Anna. My heart stopped. What did you wish for? She exhaled slowly, her voice breaking. That you be free, even if I can't be. I shook my head violently, sobbing.
No, don't you dare say that.
We're supposed to escape together. You and me. Always you and me. But she only smiled weakly, her hand trembling in mine. Midnight came. The house outside was dark and cold. Rain tapped against the window, a slow, steady rhythm that matched her fading breaths. I pressed my forehead against her hand, my tears falling onto her skin.
Please, Sarah. Please don't leave me.
Her voice was almost gone, a fragile whisper in the dark. Don't cry, Anna. You're stronger than you think. I'm not strong without you. I cried, my voice breaking. I need you, Sarah. I can't survive this house, this world, without you. Her lips curved into a faint smile, her eyelids fluttering. You'll carry me with you. Every step, every breath. I'll be there, always. And then, with her last strength, she whispered, I love you, Anna. My world shattered. Her chest rose once more, and then it didn't. I waited. I prayed for another breath. Just one more. But it never came. Her hand grew still in mine, and in that moment, I felt something inside me break beyond repair. The room was silent, unbearably, impossibly silent. I screamed her name, shaking her, begging her to wake up. Sarah, please, please don't leave me. But she was gone, gone from the pain, gone from this world, gone from me. Our mother rushed in, falling to her knees, her sobs filling the air. She reached for Sarah, cradling her lifeless body, rocking back and forth as if she could bring her back with her grief. And downstairs he didn't even come. Not once. The man who broke her never even cared to see what he had done. That was the final cruelty. I sat there the rest of the night, holding her cold hand, whispering to her even though she couldn't hear me anymore. I told her all the things I never said enough, how much I loved her, how much I needed her, how much she was my whole world. I begged the stars to take me too, so I wouldn't have to live in a world without her. But the stars stayed silent, and morning came. That was the night I lost my sister. The night the world lost its brightest light. The night Sarah's laughter was stolen forever. And though she was gone, her promise remained. She would always be with me. But no matter how tightly I hold on to her memory, the truth is that night broke me, and I've never been whole again.